March 2009, there's been a referendum and there has been a change in the constitution which abolished presidential term limits. Do you want to remain in office indefinitely?
In the cases of your countries, the prime minister, which can be elected many times. So why people should be deprived from this right? And the democratic process in Azerbaijan is very active.
Why is Azerbaijan in the state that it's in? Partly its history, partly it's a former Soviet state still getting on its feet, but the critical element is oil. And so it's able to buy people off. It's able to buy off a variety of oil companies in the West who hope to invest or do have investments.
I have the close kinship with many of the sponsors. I tried to, I think ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips. Who else did I miss from Houston, Texas? That is one of the co-sponsors. Here they are here. BP, all in the region of the energy capital of the world, which we still claim. Let me also thank SOCAR. I am a member of the Azerbaijan caucus, enthusiastic member and supportive member.
There are millions and millions of dollars being spent by people to urge the U.S. Congress to ignore its duty. You've seen Azerbaijan try to bypass Armenia in terms of oil pipelines, to wall off Armenia's economy, to bring economic pressure on Armenia.
Armenia is vulnerable today because it's sitting there in a very, very isolated position. I mean, when you look at the map, it's surrounded by Turkic-speaking nations. And of course, with the United States being its track record of siding with Turkey and the Turkic nations.
It is still illegal in Turkey to use the word genocide. The Turkish government spends millions and millions of dollars every single year using their clout to lobby against anyone in the world pushing a bill to recognize it. And apparently their clout is significant because even the United States of America hasn't officially recognized it yet.
What really concerns me the most important aspect of this is the hypocrisy that I witness and I see and I've been witnessing, especially with some inside knowledge of what takes place in the United States.
The United States government, for better or for worse, being allied with Turkey in the NATO alliance, decided some time ago that it was not going to use this word genocide.
There's no question that the Turkish lobby has been very well funded. It has been very forceful. They've hired some of the top lobbyists in the country and spent millions and millions of dollars to affect the genocide debate, and that has an impact.
Regarding the atrocities that happened in the beginning of the 20th century that some would label the Armenian genocide, I am wondering why it is that we do not recognize it as such.
I think it's fair to say that this has always been viewed, and I think properly so, as a matter of historical debate and conclusions rather than political.
When I was preparing to go out to Armenia in 2004, I took the additional step of conferring with lawyers at the State Department. And I asked him point blank, I said in 1915, if the term genocide had existed at that time, would we have applied it? And he said, without doubt.
I remember in the Foreign Affairs Committee when I was forcing a vote on the genocide because I couldn't get the chairman, then Chairman Hyde, to take up the bill directly.
When I started working for this particular division, it was not only about espionage. It was also, foreign bribery and acts being committed by U.S. persons who would be tried and imprisoned for treason.
It's for policy reasons that the United States has never gone so far as to characterize those events as genocide, although I have later discovered that we did in 1951 in writing.
This statement at the International Court of Justice, it was the statement of the United States government on the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide, and it said, the Roman persecution of the Christians, the Turkish massacres of Armenians, the extermination of millions of Jews and Poles by the Nazis are outstanding examples of the crime of genocide. I offered an amendment to a State Department authorization tasking the historian of the State Department to compile all the records on the Armenian genocide.
Early 2005, I was invited to make a speaking tour in the United States of areas heavily populated by Armenian Americans. But one question I knew was going to come up, and I frankly didn't know how I was going to deal with it, and that was the question of the genocide. And I said basically, look, I believe that what happened in 1915 was indeed a genocide.
I offered this amendment on the same day that Erdogan was visiting Washington, and there was a panic among the Turkish lobby that this vote on my amendment would overshadow the Prime Minister's visit.
And I knew there would be consequences. I didn't know precisely what the consequences would be. I knew there would be a range of consequences, anything from having my head cut off to a slap on the wrist. My term of service in Armenia was shortened by a year, and given the circumstances, I decided to retire.
And within minutes, you had two of the highest priced lobbyists, Bob Livingston on the GOP side, Steve Solars on the Democratic side, dispatched to the committee to work members during the hearing. Never seen that happen before.
Bob Livingston, he was the person who also was carrying out these types of criminal activities from foreign bribery from Turkey, not only governmental, but also by criminal organizations. He actually groomed Dennis Hastert for his position, and the fact that he became Speaker of the House after Bob Livingston, Dennis Hastert was not by any kind of fair vote or decision-making process.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
It's only been because the Jewish diaspora has managed to do well in New York, London, and Paris, that they are able to demand accountability for the Jewish genocide. And part of the reason now that finally the Armenian genocide is having some attention drawn to it is for the same reason, that the Armenian diaspora is starting to do well in major Western capitals, and it is able to push for its rights.
And it's based on the idea that you want to typically show these legislators that what we're asking for is very much aligned with our values as Americans, right? So what is Karabakh? Karabakh is a very American story. It is a story of a free people's victory, the victory of a free people over foreign rule. Does that sound familiar, right? That's our story. The American story is the story of the victory of a free people over foreign rule.
More members of Congress to say, you know, what have you done about this? You need to start implementing these measures.
Okay, then we'll do a short meeting.
I'll say 11:15 or something. We'll be there. Sure. Yeah, the SMS make it on. Yes. Okay. Thank you for waiting, sir. I apologize. So we have a lot of constituents coming from all over the United States, from states like Rhode Island, New York, North Carolina, et cetera, California. So, and we've been trying to set up meetings with their members of Congress, both on the House side as well as on the Senate side. It's very important that the senators and the members of Congress hear the stories of these people. Most of the constituents who have survived through the pogroms in Baku, in Sumgait, in Maraga, and other parts of Soviet Azerbaijan, and then they have ended up here in the United States as refugees.
I don't have anger towards the Turks. I'm pleading, I'm asking them to really level yourself with us. When I think of the Armenian people, I think of a people of high integrity, of high honor and nobility. And all we were able to do was to really exist somehow, survive somehow.
Both houses of the French Parliament have passed a bill making it a crime to deny the killings of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians in 1915 by the Ottoman Empire.
And now for the resolution as a whole, who is in favor?
Pope Francis has quoted the word genocide in referring to the mass killings of Armenians 100 years ago.
The German parliament overwhelmingly approving a measure that recognizes the massacre of hundreds of thousands of Armenians a century ago as a genocide.
The move has been strongly criticized by Turkey, which denies it was a genocide. To discuss this issue further, let's talk to Aram Hamparian, Aram, Executive Director of the Armenian National Committee of America. Thanks for being with us. Mr. Hamparian, what does this decision by France mean for Armenians around the world?
So we think it's a step toward mounting pressure, increasing pressure on Turkey to finally come to terms with the Armenian genocide, both truthfully and justly.
And it would just be so nice if we could communicate face-to-face with the Turks and with any Muslim community that's not acknowledging that the genocide actually happened.
There have been these ethnic tensions between Turkic peoples and other groups who happen to be in those countries. And in every case, you will see instances of genocidal massacres.
I very much regret that the Azerbaijanis have decided to take up the position of Turkey, being even more Catholic than the Pope, if one might say, in denying the Armenian genocide.
The only party that is obstructing any possibility of peace so far has been the government in Baku, and we're trying to get that point across and make sure that the message is clear against the regime of I would call dictator Aliyev, and that they know that they would face consequences if they are to further escalate the conflict.
Azerbaijan behaves very constructively. For more than 20 years, we are committed to negotiation process. But everybody should understand, including Armenians, that this process cannot last forever. Sooner or later, something may happen.
Hello, I'm Marianne Mashiri with BBC World News. Our top stories.
Heavy fighting is taking place between Azerbaijan's military and Armenian separatists.
Azerbaijan has launched offensive operations.
Several people are dead after fighting broke out between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Well, the situation in the region has been tense for decades, but this weekend's outbreak and violence is the worst in more than 20 years.
Well, this is a very dangerous situation along the line of contact between Artsakh and Azerbaijan. And while many Americans may view this as a faraway, low-intensity conflict that has little relevance to their lives, that could change overnight. That provocation, that most recent artillery fire answered in return, could spark a local war and then a regional war, and then a struggle between two major powers. So this could easily spiral out of control.
Maybe Azerbaijan would be able to take back some territory. Maybe the Armenians are still militarily pretty strong, and they would resist everything. But I think all we can say with certain is that there would be a lot of destruction. A lot of young men would get killed in minefields and elsewhere. Civilians would die. It would be terrible for the region. Be terrible for Georgia, which is next door. Russia and Turkey might be drawn in. It would be a big international mess, and people would try and stop it, but you know, if it took them a few weeks to stop it, a lot of damage would be done, and I don't think anything would be resolved. I think we'd be back to zero, back to square one, with just more animosity and more hatred between the two sides.
And doing that with all these massacres, doing that with all the genocides, basically showing that, you know, you had Armenian genocide, then you had Hitler's Germany, you know, we have had Cambodia, we had atrocities being committed against Kurds by Saddam Hussein at some points, by Iranian government at some points, by Turkish government continuously. And despite all the history, all the Oscar-winning movies, all these books that have written, yet today we are still doing the same thing.
Why is it that these people, the Americans and the British, who we want to like, why is it that they in particular are joining with Turkey in denial?
They put us on a death row through the desert. So no, I although it may seem like I'm angry, I'm not. And if a Turk came by and wanted to say hello to me, I would start a conversation.
Bir başkasını yok ederek hiç kimse var olamaz. Yani ister Hitler ister ve bugünkü insanlar aynı şeyi düşünür. Ne düşünürse düşünsün. Biz hiçbir halkın yok edilmesini istemiyoruz. Hiçbir kültürün, hiçbir dilin, hiçbir inancın yok edilmesini doğru bulmuyoruz.
The fact that they share the same values that me as an American share, the freedom and freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of being yourself, and freedom of self-determination, most importantly, being free of aggression and violence and war. And those are all the things that I support and continue to support, and that's why I do what I do for the people of Artsakh. And I live in the United States of America. I'm incredibly thankful to the Republic of Armenia for organizing this important event and for asking me to speak about my family and our history.
And we honor those lives by calling their tragedy by its true name, genocide. Cruelty has always been at the core, not self-defense, not simply war, but the deliberate destruction of an entire people. It happened to Armenians starting 101 years ago, and we've seen it repeated all over the world since. Germany, Cambodia, Bosnia, Rwanda.
One of my favorite quotes is "Never mistake motion for action" by Ernest Hemingway. What I want you to understand through my family's story is that we experienced genocide, ethnic cleansing, displacement, loss of property and dignity 3 times in just my family's history in the last 100 years.
Hitler once famously said, "But who remembers Armenia?" The answer is the whole world. That's who.
Let's shape the century into the century of genocide prevention, the genocide of never again, finally. And your presence here today is an incredible accomplishment towards such goal.